Welcome back to Making Money Matter, ladies and gentlemen. I've asked Bernard Rowe. He's the Managing Director of Ioneer. ASX code is INR. Now, has been a little while. I've been trying to catch him. The last time I spoke to Bernard was in October of last year. So what's that? About 8 months since we've spoken. So there'll be a lot to catch up on today. For those of you that don't know, Ioneer, ASX code is INR. They have got a lithium and boron project over in Nevada in the USA, and they've got some, we're going to do some numbers. Their share price has been under a little bit of pressure. So what I want to find out for you, our beautiful audience, is where is the shareholder value coming from? Where are they at right now? And what are the, I guess, the next steps before they get into a final investment decision? Bernard, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Pleasure, Kerry, and sorry that it's been such a long time.
Well, you've been a busy man, and I look at that picture behind you, and there's a lot of steel in there, and that says to me we may talk a little bit about construction. But for those that don't want to go back and watch the last October, give us just a brief rundown on Ioneer, then we'll get into the numbers and where you're at and where the shareholder value lies.
Yeah, sure, Kerry. So Ioneer owns the Rhyolite Ridge Lithium and Boron project in the United States, in the state of Nevada. It's one of the most advanced lithium projects in the US and in North America. It will produce both lithium carbonate and boric acid at the mine site. So it's very different than other hard rock type lithium deposits where you're making concentrates. So it's a chemical processing plant, which you can sort of see the rendered engineering design behind me. We finished a feasibility study on this project back in 2020. We're working on, and we're very close to having final permits in place. We're expecting that later this year. It's a very, very advanced project. We've got funding from both our offtake not from our offtake partners, but funding from our future partner, Sibanye Stillwater, an equity partner, and also from the US Department of Energy. So the project is largely funded. It's almost permitted, and all engineering work is done, and it's construction.
Sibanye Stillwater, why have they decided? Because I think that what they're talking about is a $490 million injection. Why would they give that to you? Like, just explain that partnership, if you like.
So we struck that deal back in 2021, but Sibanye Stillwater are the world's largest producer of platinum and palladium, and one of the world's largest producers of gold as well. But they've, over the last number of years, they've had a strategy in place where they're diversifying their investments in the mining industry with a particular focus on, green energy metals, lithium being one of them. And so they went through a process along with other companies that Goldman Sachs ran for us back in 2021. We selected them as our future partner, and there will be a joint venture formed when a final investment decision is made later this year. And that joint venture will be a 50-50 joint venture. Ioneer will be the operator and the manager, and Sibanye will inject $490 million into that joint venture in return for a 50% stake in the project. So in other words, an implied valuation of $1 billion for this project.
What's your market cap at the moment?
500 million Australian.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I just got an echo. I'm not quite sure what happened just then. Talk to us about you said just a moment ago that the feasibility study was in 2020. Will there be an updated feasibility? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what a feasibility study is, it's just the economics around a project. What's it going to cost? How are we going to get us into production? What do the numbers look like?
Yes, so that's a very good question, Kerry. And you're correct. It was 2020 that we completed the feasibility study. Now, quite a lot has changed from 2020 through to 2024, but what hasn't changed is our flow sheet. So the engineering work that was about 30% complete back in 2020 is now 70% complete, but we've made very, very few changes to this processing plant during that time. And so that bodes well, because sure, costs have escalated, no question, inflation, etc. But we haven't actually changed the design of this plant much at all, just some things around the periphery. So there's not a lot of additional scope, as we call it, additional kit that would add to the cost. So we will be doing that as part of our final investment decision, which Ioneer board and the Sibanye board must make later this year. We will have refreshed numbers that are current for the timing of that final investment decision. And, you know, you mentioned the 490 commitment from Sibanye. That's obviously a significant portion of what's required in terms of the capital. But we also have some debt that's already in place as well with the US government, conditional upon a number of things, but primarily upon having our final permits in place.
That Department of Energy, that injection, that I guess it's a loan, is it?
Yes, it's a 10-year loan at 10-year US Treasury rates of interest. The interest rate is based on the US 10-year Treasury rate. So it's a very low interest loan for a duration of 10 years for $700 million US, more than $1 billion Australian dollars, provided by the US Department of Energy under their Loan Programs Office. We were the first mining project to receive a commitment like that for a mining project that has a chemical processing plant, again, like as shown behind me here, integrated into it. We were the first to receive that commitment.
Why did they like this project against other projects? Because 700 million, as you just said, it's $1 billion Aussie. That's nothing to be sneezed at. That's I'd be interested.
It's the same pot of money, by the way, that Elon Musk obtained from the Department of Energy years ago for starting Tesla. And I think he got just over $500 million. So yes, $700 million US is a very significant amount. Why Ioneer? Simple answer is the project, the uniqueness of the project and the way in which we can process it and have a chemical processing plant at the site that makes lithium carbonate. So it's not just a mine that's producing a concentrate that gets shipped off somewhere else for refining. We dig up rock and we crush and leach it, and we end up making 98 to 99% pure lithium carbonate at the mine site. So that was a key part of it. And the second part of it was how advanced we were on the engineering work. There's no way in the world we would have got that loan commitment if we hadn't completed to the level that we had the engineering and design work, which included a full simulation pilot plant. So in other words, it was ready to be constructed. And those two things together are what allowed us to, or led to us getting that conditional commitment from the US government.
I'm just going through in my head and thinking about some of what do you think the market, are you just, sorry, Bernard, to be blunt, are you just in the boring stage at the moment? That's why people aren't very excited about Ioneer?
Look, I think there's a combination of reasons. Firstly, I would say it's the macro around lithium. You know,
yeah, true.
I mean, we went through a very, very bullish period and in fact, we've been through several. We started working on this project back in 2016, and there's been, you know, at least 2 cycles during that time. And, you know, for the last 12 months, the lithium price has been in a downward trend. Mm-hmm. And what happens, particularly when you're a pre-production company like ours, well, your share price falls during those times. Of course, the key is to be well funded through those times to continue working on the projects so that you're in a very, very good position when the market starts to turn. And what we've seen, I think, from so far for the first 5 months of this year is we've seen lithium carbonate prices and lithium hydroxide prices bottoming out. Okay, they're not falling any further. In fact, spodumene prices, I think, up about 25 or 26% this year. We haven't seen those increases in carbonate and hydroxide prices yet, but spodumene fell harder to begin with. So, you know, we're seeing pricing stabilizing. We're expecting to see pricing recovery. And I would also point out that, again, we've been working on this project for a while. When we started in 2016, the lithium carbonate price was $6,000. Oh. When we did our feasibility study back in 2020, we used a pricing assumption of $11,000 for lithium carbonate. The pricing today is just under 14,000. So there's been a lot of volatility in the lithium price over that 6 or 7 years. However, there's also been an unquestionable increase in price, and it's a healthy increase in price when you think 6,000 to 14,000, and we're at the bottom of the pricing cycle right now. Prices have stabilised, and we're expecting to see them run higher. But Rhyolite Ridge has another really unique advantage when it comes to pricing assumptions, and that is 30% of our revenue comes from boric acid. So we can actually withstand the volatility around lithium prices much more than a pure lithium player, because we have 30% of our revenue, in excess of $100 million a year of revenue, coming from a byproduct, which is really a co-product, boric acid. And it's the only lithium project in the world that has a co-product of that magnitude.
What's boric acid used for again?
The biggest use is in the borosilicate glass industry. So glass that can withstand high heat. So the most simple example of that everyone knows about is Pyrex or Corning cookware.
Yes.
Yeah, but of course it's way more than that. But the glass is the biggest industry, biggest user of boron. Solar panels. The glass on a solar panel is made of borosilicate glass.
Okay.
Because it can withstand high heat and it doesn't shrink and expand and crack. It's used in fiberglass insulation. It's used in electric motors for the permanent magnets. It's used in insulation in housing. It's used for glass fibers and reinforced glass fiber products, such as wind turbines, the blades on wind turbines. It's got numerous applications. Agriculture, it's a micronutrient.
So it almost de-risks. That helps a lot, I would have thought, in the de-risking of the projects. It's not just a pure lithium project. If you've got the boric acid and you say it's 30%, which is going to give you 100 mil rev, that's nothing to be sneezed at.
No, absolutely. That's right. And it's more than 100 million. It's significantly more than that. But as a guide, it's sort of plus 100 million a year for the duration of the project. It's not something that we get as a kicker at the beginning or the end or in the middle. The ore has this boron in it, and it's intimately associated with the lithium, and there's a lot of it. And it's almost like a triple whammy with the boron, because it adds to the revenue, but it also has positive properties for the rock. So the rock that contains the lithium, which is a sedimentary rock, it's a layered sediment. And most people think sedimentary lithium equals clay.
Yeah.
Well, that is the case for every other known lithium sedimentary deposit in North America. Rhyolite Ridge is the one exception. Instead of clay, these rocks are full of this mineral called silicium. It's a boron mineral. It helps to make the rock solid and competent, which allows us to leach it in a way that is way, way cheaper, both in terms of OPEX, because it's a much simpler process, no filtering required, but also CAPEX, because there's a lot less equipment and a lot less energy required in order to process it. And that directly relates to this unique boron mineralogy that's in here. So it's the physical property of the rock, it's the way you can process it, and it adds a significant amount of revenue to the project. So it really is a triple whammy positive because of the boron.
One of the key issues that I've heard that is making people, is the word nervous the right word? I don't know, but it's the permitting side of it. When I last spoke to you, that was a little bit far away. So that was October last year. Where are we now that I'm talking to you in June of 24?
Well, I'm very glad you asked me that question, and I think you hit it on the nail on the head. That does make people nervous. I think any mining project in the United States is looked at as if you ask for what's the number one risk around developing a project in the United States, it's the timeline for permitting. I think the average time to permit a mining project in the United States is something like 15 or 16 years.
Hui.
Okay. So it takes a long time. And by the way, many other countries around are not much better. Australia, of course, we have a very advanced and mature mining industry, and generally speaking, it takes a lot less time. In our case, we're going to be fully permitted by October of this year. That's what the federal government have said, and they are sticking to those timelines. Now, it's called a record of decision.
Are you sorry to burn it? It's the skeptic in me. You say they're sticking to it. Really?
Yes, really, I'm very confident around this. And the reason I'm so confident is that all the work that's gone into our permitting process going back to 2019. So we started permitting this project with our environmental baseline studies in 2019. And that's the key. If you want to get a project permitted in the United States in less than the average, then what you've got to do is start early on all of your baseline studies and all of the monitoring, and then also taking into account the information that you gather as you are doing those studies and modifying and morphing your project as you go to take those things into account. If you have a project and you take it forward and then you decide, okay, now I'm going to go and do my baselines, that creates a number of headaches, or it will create a number of headaches for you. One is that it'll take a long time. It's just simply leaving it too late to start that work. But the big one is actually you don't have the information that you need as you're designing your projects to mold it to the information that you've gathered as you've been doing, that is baseline studies and monitoring. Now, this is exactly the approach we took by starting the baselines early. We've got all that data. We had it all in hand as we've been designing. We've made some modifications over the last couple of years in terms of not the processing plant, but in terms of mining areas. And we've avoided the Tim's buckwheat that's out at the site that got listed as an endangered species during the process. The reason why we were able to pivot, and come up with an alternative plan and that avoided all the buckwheat was because we'd done all the work in advance. And that's the key. And that's why I'm confident that we've left no stone unturned.
Okay.
We've done everything that we could possibly do in preparation for this final stage of the permitting process. And how do I then measure that? Well, the government said that they would start the public comment period on a certain date, and they did. The government said that they would close that public comment period on a certain date, which was the 3rd of June. So that was yesterday in the United States, and they did.
Okay.
I don't see anything at all that is going to stand in the way of having a record of decision for this project in October of this year.
Okay, and nothing untoward came out of the public comment period?
No, not that we have seen. So, and we've seen a lot of the public comments, but no, there were no surprises to us in any of that. There was actually very strong support, I'm pleased to say, from the local community, including the Esmeralda County, the local government area that we're in. And again, that's the result. That's not by accident. That's the result of years of work by Ioneer engaging with the local community. We started having community meetings in this valley 5 years ago or thereabouts, and I've known many of the people in this valley well before that as
You've
well.
been working in that valley for 20 odd years. They all know him over there, ladies and gentlemen. They all know who Bernard is, and he's very good at actually keeping in touch with the community. Bernard, I do know you spend a lot of time over there. Speaking of which, we are running out of time.
Sure.
Let me just ask you this: record of a decision, October?
Yes.
Once that's in, that's
So,
all risk out of the way. Is that right?
On the permitting side, yes.
Okay.
And so then what happens after the record of decision is that we make an FID decision with Sibanye. So we close the deal, the agreement with Sibanye, and we close the conditional loan from the Department of Energy. So we will be doing that we're working on those things right now. Okay,
Yeah.
so all of these things are happening in parallel, but they will all come together in October, November, and December of this year, so that we will have all of these things done by the end of this calendar year. That's our aim, and we're very, very much intent on sticking to that. And we've done the work. That's the good thing. I'm not saying we don't have a lot of work in front of us, but the lion's share of the work is done that is allowing us to be very confident around meeting those goals.
So, ladies and gentlemen, while you think that it's the boring time, these guys have actually, it's like building a house, get a solid foundation, get the work done, make sure that you don't leave, excuse the pun here, any stone unturned, and
Yes.
and start to do the work so that there are no surprises you go forward. So I think it's a pretty exciting time for Ioneer, but as I say, no financial advice or instruction there. But I've got one last question for you, Bernard. Why will the market turn for lithium? I'm just curious. You said that, I think earlier, that you said you thought that the market will turn. Why?
I think the transition of energy is underway, and it's going to sometimes exceed expectations and other times disappoint on how quickly things happen. But I definitely think that we're heading in the same direction. So that direction has not changed. There is going to be a need for a lot of lithium. It's primarily driven by electric vehicles, of course, but there's also other applications, as there is for boron, as I've mentioned. So I think we're going to see that trend continue. But there's an important layer on top of that that's very relevant to Rhyolite Ridge, and that is that the US is the second largest car market in the world. It's one of the world's largest consumers of lithium already, and that's only going to grow. It's the second largest consumer of boron in the world, and it wants stable, secure, sustainable supply chains all the way through to the raw material. And that's why Ioneer's project is such a standout, and that's why we were successful, along with the other things I mentioned, in getting the support of the Department of Energy loan program. And you can argue the numbers, okay, but in round numbers, the US is going to need about 1 million tons of lithium carbonate a year, sometime in the next, at the start of the next decade. Whether it's 2030 or 31 or 32, you can debate, but it's going to be about 1 million tons required. Domestic production today is only around about 5,000 or 6,000 tons.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's negligible. So there is no way, in my view, there is no way in the world that the United States is going to electrify its transportation industry and transition to clean energy and not have domestic supply chains of critical materials, which include lithium and, in my view, boron.
Now I get it. Now I just had that light bulb moment where I go, now I get why the DOE went, here's some money. Because you're not just a mining operation either. You're a chemical plant. As you said before, it's lithium carbonate. It's not just sending the concentrate out, and it's onshore in the USA. Right, we have run out of time. What I want you to do, if you wouldn't mind, gosh, you have to come back again soon, because I've still got so much to ask you. But I just want wrap it up for us, if you like, Bernard. As I said at the start, the share price has been under a bit of pressure. The market thinks maybe it's in a boring stage, but I actually think you're in the start of actually a pretty exciting phase. Tell us 3 reasons why people should be sitting up and taking notice of Ioneer right now.
Okay, most advanced lithium project in the United States. Clear line of sight to our final permits. Partners in place already with Sibanye, Ford, Toyota, EcoPro. They're our offtake partners. One of the very few potential sources of domestic lithium and new domestic boron in the United States this decade. Funded. We've recently raised some additional capital, so the company is funded through to completion of the work that I've been describing here today on the call, and then into a partnership phase where Sibanye contributes $490 million. So we're just in a very, very enviable position. And it comes back to what I mentioned earlier. through these troughs and peaks of the cycle, what you hope you can do, and fortunately we've been in that position, is the troughs, you just put your head down and continue on doing the work. You need funding for that, and we've been in a position that has allowed that. And we're now extremely well placed as the pricing and the market picks up, and we will be in production, or construction rather, next year, starting construction next year, and becoming an integral part of that US domestic production, which I think absolutely has to happen.
All right. I think it was more than 3 reasons he gave you to sit up and take notice, but we'll take them all. We'll take them all. Well done on getting the work done. We'll look forward to that final investment decision, but I hope to get you back on Making Money Matter before then. But congratulations on the work done so far. So, ladies and gentlemen, ASX code is INR, not investment advice whatsoever, but go check them out. They have done the work. And as Bernard said, the US is currently only got, what did you say, 5,000-6,000 tons. They need 1 million, and perhaps Ioneer are the one to fill the gap. So we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for joining me today, Bernard.
Thank you, Kerry.